Y'all ready for this? They should start every day like that at work. Like everybody shows up to work like, all right, guys, morning meeting. Y'all ready for this? And it was like, yeah, all right, let's get to work.
We used to clap at everything. We did all hands, like essentially assembly. And our XO, who's second in command, would say, clap it out, guys. And we would clap for everything. And then when we get visitors, like people from other ships would ride with us, they're like, damn, you guys clap at everything. Like, yeah, it's the best.
Man, what an incredible use of our government resources right there.
Dude, clap it out.
How about we start this one with clapping it out? All right, guys. Raymond here from the Beginner Photography Podcast. That's how we're going to start this episode. Today, we are talking about how you can start your photography business with just $1,000 and if upgrading to a new camera body is worth it. Let's clap our way into this episode.
Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast with Raymond Hatfield. The podcast dedicated to interviewing world-class photographers to ask them the questions you want answered. Whether you want to be the world's best wedding photographer, family photographer, pet photographer, or you just want to take better photos of your kids growing up, we will get you to start taking better photos today. Here with you as always, husband, father, home brewer, LA Dodgers fan, and award-winning Indianapolis wedding photographer, Raymond Hatfield.
Oh, that's great. This is going to be a fun one, Dad.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, Paul. Paul, welcome back. We're still here.
Thank you, Ray.
2017.
Yeah.
We are still here.
Which podcast is this?
This is the Q&A Photo Thursdays. This is episode number 7. We've been doing this for 7 weeks now, man. That's almost 2 months.
Who else was number 7, Raymond?
Who else is number 7?
Mickey Mantle. Mick.
Wow. I think I said Derek Jeter.
No, number 2. Come on.
Oh.
And he's getting his number retired in May.
Well, I heard that there was some discrepancy over that because now they've retired way too many jerseys. Now they don't have any other numbers to give to new players.
You know what? It's not.
This would be a perfect.
Fault. I guess it is the Yankees' fault that
yes,
they have so many amazing players.
Yeah. This would be the perfect plot for an episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah, especially since George works for the Yankees.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It'd be great. Walks into Steinbrenner's office.
He's like, well, no, wait, what did he do for the Yankees, though?
What did George do for the Yankees? Oh, man, I think he just did, like, travel or like the travel.
He didn't really do anything.
He didn't really do anything. He just was kind of
so
there.
It wouldn't be his forte. That's like the equipment manager to be like, Mr. Steinbrenner, we've run out of numbers.
Yeah, he what? He's the assistant to the traveling secretary.
But he had an office overlooking right field.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And what a great show.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, man. You know what we need to start doing? Answering some photo questions.
Okay, let's get to it. Sammy wants to know, is it appropriate for the Yankees to retire any more numbers? Yes.
Ooh, good question,
No,
Sammy.
it is not.
It is
they
not.
They can keep doing it.
It is
not.
Not.
Keep doing it because you know what? That all-star train is not going to stop anytime soon.
Right.
Next question. Sammy has a follow-up.
Oh, okay.
Raymond, if you had $1,000 to start your photography business, what gear would you buy?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, this is a little bit less about baseball and more about photography. So I got.
Can I give this a crack?
Switch gears here.
Okay, so I it's kind of a vague question. Mm-hmm. Just by we don't know where you're at in your photography business
or
starting.
If you have a camera. But let's assume that you have a camera.
Right, so you have the camera. Mm-hmm. I think I would put my $1,000 into a website marketing.
Paul, you're killing it, man. Yeah.
Yes.
You're answering these questions really well.
Yes.
Photography is really cool for a few reasons because, for one, if you're just a hobbyist, you can make a fair amount of money on the side just doing, photography for families or engagements or whatever, and you can essentially just kind of stockpile that cash because legally you have to be a business. But let's say that, maybe you're doing this, maybe you're illegally taking cash for services provided because you're not technically a business and it's more of like a friendly transaction where somebody's just giving you some money and you just so happen to be photographing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay. So you're not exchanging cash for services because you're not officially a business yet. So what I would do with that money is I would save as much as of it as you could, right? So let's just say that you get to a point to where now you got $1,000, or probably more likely with this time of the year, maybe you got a tax check coming, and it's going to be $1,000 that you're going to be able to spend towards photography. So the first thing that you need to figure out is where you need help the most in getting clients, right? So if you have people coming to you left and right, and you are just like, you've never once thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to get more clients? And that, then I don't know, maybe buy some new gear, right? But if you're thinking, all I have is a camera, and right now I'm basically just shooting like some families and like some friends and stuff, but I'm not really getting like a lot of paid gigs. So like, how can I really use this to boost my photography business? Then I would definitely, first thing that I would do is I would get a website for sure, because you have to own a spot online. A lot of people use Facebook. A lot of people exclusively use Facebook. But the thing about Facebook is, and I've said it on the podcast before, is that tomorrow Facebook could be like, hey guys, you know what? We're going to give up on this whole internet thing, and we're just going to start making laundry detergent. So we're just going to shut down our website tomorrow. And all of your information, all of your clients' information, all of these like agreements that you've made with people, all of these leads that you have collected are now gone. And when that happens, your business is going to be screwed, because how else are you going to start getting clients if there's no more Facebook? Now, the likelihood of that happening is very low, but you still have to be open to the possibility that something like that could happen. I mean, a few years ago,
or more so, just cyber terrorism.
Okay, yeah, sure. Or even cyber terrorism.
That's like a more likely scenario. Cyber terrorism. They did it to Twitter. What if they did it to Facebook and they shut it down for like a couple weeks?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And you have your whole business revolved around Facebook.
Yeah, I think that the most likely scenario here is that a few years ago, business accounts were treated as personal accounts. And if you posted something on your business account, all of your friends saw it. If you had 10,000, if you had 1,000 fans on Facebook, all 1,000 people saw that. Whatever it was that you posted. The amount of reach that you could get was incredible. And now they've changed it because essentially they want you to pay money, because your Facebook page is essentially an advertisement. They want you to pay money to really get in front of a lot of people. So like for my situation, I have about 1,000 fans on Facebook. And whenever I post something, I get about 100 people who actually see it. And then out of those 100, maybe 10%, maybe 5% actually like my status, right? So that leaves 90% of my audience who doesn't see everything that I posted. And that's just because Facebook decided one day, hey, you know what, guys? We're going to change up our algorithm and how things work and how we show your information to your fans. So having a website is super important. You have to have a website. Now, when I first started off, I had a WordPress website because, hands down, WordPress is the best for future-proofing your website, because essentially think of it as like you can customize everything. You can do anything that you want on WordPress. Like 90% of the internet runs on WordPress. Like it's just the best. However, like 8 years ago when I first started a website, it was so clunky that I didn't have fun updating it. I didn't have fun doing anything on it, and therefore I just didn't update it at all. I didn't do anything with it. I wasn't keeping up with it until I switched to Squarespace, right? Squarespace just made it easy enough that whatever I wanted to do, I could do it. Now, there was a lot of limitations, but at the end of the day, the limitations I take that back. The ease of use outweighed the limitations, and
Squarespace is not paying you right now to say this.
They're not paying me to say this right now. However,
this is not an advertisement.
I would gladly scream and shout their names from the rooftops, because it is the best way, I think, just to get right into photography. If you want to use WordPress, go for it. You're going to be way set up better for the future. But as of right now, if you don't want to learn how to code a website, if you don't want to learn anything about hosting, if you don't want to learn anything about, I don't even know. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong with the website. When you're making the whole thing yourself, that I wouldn't know how to fix it. And therefore, I'm just going to work on something now that I know is going to get me in front of the most amount of people the fastest. And that's why I chose Squarespace. So get yourself a website for sure. The next thing that I would do is buy I'd buy two things. Look for a course called the SEO Cookbook by Zach Perez. And in that book, it talks all about how to optimize your website for search engines, how Google can best find you, how brides can best find you, and what have you. That's really going to give you a leg up. A lot of people just post photos online, but there's so many small tweaks that you can do to your photos and to the copy on your website that is just going to skyrocket you to closer to the top of Google's page ranks. If anybody ever searches for your city family photographer, your city wedding photographer, or whatever. Next thing I would do is ask around some photography forums for the best course on Facebook advertising, because Facebook is still hands down the best way to advertise your services. Hands down. Hands freaking down. So mastering that is going to be the key. Something like that would probably cost around $200, maybe $250, but it will pay for itself. I guarantee it. It will help you also build a better website because you're going to learn who your ideal client is, and it's just going to make you a happier person. With the rest of the money, I would buy memory cards and batteries and an external hard drive, because if you only have one copy of your photos, you have no copies of your photos. Meaning that if you have all of your wedding photos on your laptop, somebody steals your laptop, you now have 0 photos, right? So having an external hard drive so that you can back up everything is going to be key and detrimental to your success. And then just start going from there. Just save up money. Go to every networking event that you can. Try to get your name out there. Talk to as many brides as you can. Grassroots roots. Just really pound that pavement.
All right, so you're going to advertisement, Facebook, buy a book, get some courses, and then buy an external hard drive and then some other stuff. Like
memory cards,
actual
batteries.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Accessories. But like
USB
essential
drives.
Accessories.
Yeah,
nonsense.
maybe sign Maybe sign up for Pixie Set so that you can have a more elegant way of delivering your photos to clients. Just things to think about. Yeah, think about if the client would notice this money that you're spending. That's what I would do. Think about that.
All right, it's Paul from Instagram. He asks.
Didn't you just sign up for Instagram?
I did. Maybe I asked this question.
Did you? Okay, so you asked this question. So, Paul, why don't you ask me a question?
Okay. I've said I would rather have a grainy photo than a blurry photo, so why not I just keep my ISO at 3200 all day and just keep adjusting my shutter speed?
Interesting. So you said that.
Would
you
I
said
be
that
accurate in that statement?
Oh, okay. Well, yes and no. No being no, you can't do that. You can't just keep your ISO at 3200 all day and just keep adjusting your shutter speed for a few reasons. 3200 is pretty damn sensitive to light, and therefore, if it's like a really bright day, you're not going to be able to get a shutter speed fast enough to properly expose the photo. Everything's going to be completely blown out. When I say that I would rather have a grainy... What's that?
There's my problem.
There's your problem. When I say that I would rather have a grainy photo than a blurry photo, what I'm saying is that don't be scared of high ISO. Don't be scared of, cranking that ISO up so that you can get a properly exposed photo that is that has a shutter speed fast enough to capture whatever action is going on. I'm not saying just hang out at 3200 and just adjust your shutter speed all day, because there's plenty of times where I will shoot in the daylight at ISO 200 at 1/8000th of a second for my shutter speed. That's the fastest that you can go is in terms of shutter speed. And that, for my camera, is the lowest the ISO will go. So I have maxed out my light controlling abilities through just the camera body. If I shot at ISO 3200, everything would just look like a nuclear bomb went off. Everything would just be pure white. There'd be no detail in anything, and you wouldn't have anything properly exposed. So I challenge you to go out there and try it, just to see the effect that it has, just to see how the photos turn out so that you have a better understanding of how that works and can better understand what I'm talking about. But if you're ever in a situation where it's really dark and you think, oh my God, I don't want to raise up my ISO, it's going to be a grainy photo, just do it. do it. If it means that you're going to have a faster shutter speed and you're going to be able to capture the photo, do it. Screw grain. Nobody's going to care if it's a really good photo. What I mean is nobody's going to care about the grain if your photo is really good.
All right.
Okay.
Holly from Facebook asks, I have a T3i. Who makes that?
Canon.
And where's that in the spectrum of beginner to...
Entry.
What is that?
Entry level camera.
Okay, like first entry level or second entry level?
Oh, yes. First.
Okay. So she has a 3Ti, and her friend is selling her 70D, which is...
Also Canon, and is a prosumer camera.
Okay, like first tier pro?
Like hobbyist. So think of entry level as like mom who just wants to take some pictures of her kids at home. Mm-hmm. Hobbyist is, hey, you know what? I think I understand this photography thing. Maybe I'm going to get out and maybe even learn some off-camera flash and take my camera out of auto.
Okay, so she wants to know, is it worth the upgrade to go from her T3i to a 70D? So because they're both Canons, the settings and everything should be about the same, right? So it's the same language.
Yeah. I mean, as far as settings go, every camera is exactly the same. This 1980 Pentax K1000 adjusts everything exactly the same. You got your aperture right here, you have your shutter speed right there, and then you have your ISO. I mean, you can't change the ISO because it's film, but you can. That's essentially where you.
But I mean, like, if you're going to go Canon to Nikon or
Fuji
yeah,
there's a bit of a learning curve.
Sony, you know what I mean? But like, if she's going to stay in the family of Canon, is it advantageous?
I think what she's wondering more of is like we just talked about. You know, the T3i is definitely made for the consumer who just wants to take something better than the photos with their iPhone. You know, but maybe doesn't ever care about getting paid money for shoots because the build quality of the camera is plastic. It's very small in your hands and it's not very ergonomic. It works. You can change all the right settings and you can get amazing photos out of it, but it's not really laid out to adjust things like your aperture, or it's assuming that you're essentially just going to put the camera in auto mode and just let the camera do all the thinking, whereas the 70D is where you're going to be able to adjust things independently. So I have a 70D right here with a microphone on it, so let me take that out. I have a 70D right here, and just the size, you get information there on the top LCD right there. So just at a glance, you can be like, oh, my aperture is 2.8 at 1/1000th of a second. My ISO is at 800, right? All that information is right there at the top for you. Typically, larger cameras have better autofocus systems, and they're just made more for getting the shot, right? Like you being able to independently control your shot. So based on that, what would you think?
I would say if it's financially reasonable, why not step up, really expand your wings and move into some uncharted territory.
Okay.
Have some fun with it.
Right. Okay. I see your point there. Now, the thing is, the T3i, the sensor in the T3i, and the 70D are exactly the same. So your images are going to get 0% better. The images that come out of the camera will not be any better. I mean, technically, the sensor in the 70D is better. It has better low light performance with ISO and stuff. But in terms of overall image quality, sensor size, depth of field, resolution, things like that, exactly the same.
So you have more control with the hobbyist camera.
You don't have more control, but the control is easier. So what this really comes down to is ease of use. Do you think that, let's just say, for the sake of argument here, now I've talked to Holly about this because she was asking a legitimate time-sensitive question, so I answered her question. Depends on how much the camera is, right? In this instance, let's just say that it's $700, okay? Is
and
being
how much
able...
is her camera?
Oh, I don't know.
MSRP.
I mean, now it's an older camera. You could probably get one for about $350.
Okay.
So is it worth $700 to be able to change your aperture quicker? Is it worth $700 to have a slightly faster autofocus system? Is it worth $700 to be able to shoot in slightly lower light? Is it worth $700 to have a larger camera body? Right. These are all the questions that you have to be asking. I mean, there's other things like it's more rugged and stuff like that. And overall, it's a better shooting experience. It's more fun to shoot with a 70D because it feels more fluid in your hands. Right. The T3i, I don't even remember how you change the aperture, but it's like you have to press a button and then with another dial you have to change it. Whereas with the 70D, you just move this wheel right here. Your shutter speed is right there. You change that, and then with your ISO, one button, and then you rotate that same wheel, right? So it's much more intuitive than the T3i. But at the end of the day, your image quality isn't going to get any better. It's just a more fluid system.
Okay.
So that's what you have to ask if it's worth.
Oh, I think that's an easier question than I would assume.
Oh, good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you could look all day online.
The pictures are the
tutorials.
same.
Right.
It's just how into the weeds you want to get.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Marco from Instagram, I want to get into food photography, but I'm a horrible cook. Any advice to build my portfolio? So I recently learned...
Yes.
I read some stuff, and I had no idea Marco was going to ask this question. This was only for my own advancement in general knowledge.
Of photography?
Yeah, like taking pictures of food and then like commercial, like for food, like on TV or in a movie or something.
Styling.
That in photos, still photography, is it the same like preparing? Because when you film food, it's not, you really don't even cook the food,
right?
It's like maybe cooked for 5 minutes in an oven just to get it to like look like it's cooked,
right?
Is it the same with still photography?
Well, that's getting really deep into food photography, much deeper than I was planning on going. But yeah, essentially video, photo, there's a little more leeway because with photos, it's a whole lot easier to add things in Photoshop, like water droplets on tomatoes to make them look fresh, or steam coming off that steak to make it look like it came right out of the oven. Whereas with video, it requires a lot more work on the back end since it's moving photos essentially. This is good though for Marco. This is good because that means that your photo doesn't have to be, or the food doesn't have to be absolutely perfect to take its photo, because you know that you're going to have to do some work in Photoshop to clean it up. The thing is that Marco, I think that I get it, right? I think that you're saying, hey, you know what? I really want to be a food photographer, but nobody's going to hire me until I have a portfolio to show. So therefore, I'm going to cook my food to photograph. Is that what you're getting out of this, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like I have to prepare 10 meals, and then I could take individual sections of those meals, and then I'll have a portfolio show like meat, a starch, fish, vegetables, a whole table setting.
Right.
He needs that. He needs to be able to show that, and it would be a lot cheaper and easier if he just made himself. But he's not a good cook.
Easier and cheaper than what?
Than hiring a chef.
Ah, there's where you're wrong.
Really?
Yes, because here's the thing, is that if I were you, Marco, I would go to every single mom and pop diner, family-owned place and say, hey, look, I'm looking at your menus right now. They're garbage. I've been on your website. It's garbage. You need good pictures of your food. You want people to come and eat this food. So here's what I want to do, right? I really want to get into food photography. You guys have food. I do photography. Let's make this a marriage. Okay. So you guys are going to cook, just some of your, best selling meals, or, maybe your worst selling meals that you want to sell more of. And I'm going to photograph them. for free. You can use the photos for your menu. You can use the photos for your website. You can use the photos for your face, whatever you want to. But I'm going to be using these photos for my portfolio to start shooting other restaurants and stuff. And therefore, you have somebody who knows what they're doing in the kitchen. You have a restaurant who already knows, already has a good idea of how to plate, how to deliver their food. And they're giving it to you ready to go. All you have to do is photograph it. Get the lights set up. Get the camera ready. When it comes out of the oven, they put it on the table. You go snap, 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 snap. And then you take those photos. And that is it. I would not be cooking food. You're a talented photographer. Do not waste your time on cooking food if you're not good at cooking food. Spend more time shooting things and let the professionals cook.
Wow, that's a really easy answer. That's
what
awesome. I would never have thought that.
That's what I would do. I'm just saying.
I know.
Photography is a lot more valuable to people than what you think, right? If you own a small business like, clothing shop or a restaurant, that's what it is that you focus on. Like, that's what at some point you were passionate about it. Hopefully you're still passionate about it. And photography is just not your forte. And when you think like, especially, restaurants, like, how do I, to hire somebody who is focused on just shooting food has got to be insanely expensive. How about we just do it ourselves, and then they take it with their cell phone, like under a shitty light or something. And the photos just look terrible. I can't tell you how many restaurants I've been to and thought, oh my God, somebody needs to come in here and take better photos. I want to do it as a sympathy thing, right?
How many times have you been to Olive Garden and you want to get everything on that little triangle thing?
It looks so good.
Yeah, the tour of Italy.
That's my jam right there, Paul. You know me too well.
Ooh, I do know you too well.
The chicken parmigiana,
Garçon, I'll take the tour.
Mm-hmm. You don't even have to give me a menu. You don't even have to give me a menu. I show up, and that's what I tell the maitre d'. I'm like, hey, just tell my server I'm getting the tour of Italy. Don't even hit me that menu bullshit. Yes. So, it's all about food styling, and it's all about getting great photos. So that is what I would do, because you have you have a skill, you have a talent to offer. And they would appreciate that so much. And I'm telling you, I've done this with a few photographers, and they let you eat the food afterward, and that's not bad either. That's not bad. That
sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a question for you, Ray.
Okay.
From the hip.
If
your eyes were a lens, what would they be? Like, how would they be sold? What would be the magnification? What would be the width? What would be the
focal length?
Yeah.
It varies from person to person, obviously, because eyes are different. Some people wear glasses. Some people don't have to wear glasses. But it's typically accepted that the field of view, or I guess more of what's the word? I don't want to say depth of field, but I guess field of view is about right. The compression, okay? The compression that your eye sees is closest to a 50 millimeter lens. So that's why a lot of people shoot with the 50, because it feels most natural to them. Now, the thing about, the reason why you can't just hold up a 50 millimeter lens and see everything around you is because our eyes are much more advanced than lenses. Our eyes are much more advanced than camera systems, right? So a 50 millimeter lens, a 50 millimeter is talking about the angle of view, but the amount of compression that it produces is about the same of what our eyes produce. Now, if you were to break it down in terms of millimeters, I would assume that it would be something like a 10 millimeter lens, like our field of view. Because if I'm looking straight and I'm holding out my arms right now, let's see, I can see my arm right about there and my left arm right about there, and that is just slightly less than 180 degrees, right? Slightly less than 180 degrees. So, I mean, it's a pretty damn wide, but the amount of compression, it's about a 50 millimeter lens.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. That's all I got.
That's all we got today?
That's all we got today. It was quick.
Knocked it out of the park.
Exactly.
You like how I ended that with another baseball reference?
I like it. Do you got anything coming up, Raymond?
Do I have anything coming up? Things coming up. I got a few engagement sessions coming that I booked during the New Year's. I put out an ad on Facebook letting engaged couples know that I am available, that I'm an awesome wedding photographer, that if they're awesome and they like drinking cool craft beers here locally in Indianapolis and they like going on adventures, then we would probably be a pretty good fit. And I got a good amount of response out of that, way more than I ever did going to that holiday bridal show that I went to, which once again will not be doing that again. So I got some engagement sessions. As of now. Yeah. So I got some engagement sessions coming up that I'm really looking forward to, but right now it's cold.
Have you ever shot in the snow?
Yeah, I shot a wedding in the snow 2 years ago. It was right before Christmas, and it was funny because from the church, they were going to go into a limo and then go over to the reception. However, it was frigid, and everybody wanted family photos outside, like in front of the church. It was a big, beautiful church. So we all got outside, after they did like their receiving line. Everybody's freezing cold, and all the guys have their, their suits. They got their jackets. They got their nice jackets, and they're like, all right, like this isn't terrible. But the ladies are wearing strapless dresses, and they're like, short dresses, I guess, and they are all just like, frigid.
Pissed.
Oh man, it looks like all of these ladies are just like flexing every muscle in their body, and all the guys are just kind of relaxed and hanging out. And one of the guys gave his jacket to one of the girls, and then all the other guys were like, okay, I guess we should go ahead and do this, except for one dude. One dude didn't give up his jacket. So I got one photo of all the ladies except for one. Just like, oh, this
was
is
that
much
one
nicer.
The groom?
What's that?
Was the one the groom?
No, actually, it was the groom who gave his bride his jacket first, and that made all the other groomsmen like, oh, yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, except for one dude who's like, I'm
the
not
last
giving up my
groomsman.
jacket. Yeah, I am not giving up my jacket. I'm not giving up my jacket. So there was one bridesmaid who was just like, I'm still freezing. And all the other groomsmen were looking at that last groomsman like, you're a jerk. So snow weddings are, they kind of go that way. That's just kind of how they are. But
and were you cold? Did you have your?
No, I knew what was going on. I knew that it was going to be cold that day. I brought a jacket. I brought gloves. Brought nice some snowboarding socks. I was prepared for sure. But yeah.
Does the lens frost over or anything like that, or
no, it doesn't frost over. It would fog up if you were to go into a warm area. However, this church, I believe, was going through some budget cuts and didn't have the heat as high as maybe the guests wanted. And therefore, I think that there was only like one moment where I was like, ooh, it's fogged up. But luckily, I had to walk to the back of the church, and by the time I got to the back of the church, it was already cleared up.
So it's nothing to worry about. But if it was like they had that.
Oh no, like Miami,
cooking at
humid.
85.
Ooh.
No, I mean like if they went from snow. If you were outside and then you went into an 85-degree church, you would just keep whatever lens inside, right?
I'd have to wait it out. Can't take any photos. Or just keep wipe, shoot.
Oh, so it's not the inside of the lens is going to get fogged. It's just
the outside.
The exterior.
Yep.
Okay. I thought
the front element. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Anyway, Paul, if anybody has any questions, how do you think they should reach out and ask those questions?
They should text you by, I'm going to give your phone number up right now.
How about they just get to us on Instagram, Facebook, or our email? So if you're on Instagram, head over and you have a photo question for photo Q&A Thursdays. Head over to Instagram, username Beginner Photo Podcast, Facebook is Beginner Photography Podcast, and of course you can send us an email at beginnerphotographypodcast@gmail.com, and I would love to answer any and all of your photo questions on Photo Q&A Thursday. So until next week, highly recommend that you do that and keep up with our daily Instagram challenge, which is going great, by the way. So until next week, Paul, what do you say? You want to meet again, same time, same place?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, let's do it. Oh, you know what? Actually, it's going to be kind of late. How about we do it a little earlier?
I guess.
Okay.
I guess that will work. I'll
Sounds
pencil
good.
you in.
Okay.
I'll let my assistant know.
Appreciate that.
Oh, by the way, thanks. That was a great Christmas gift. Remy got me an assistant. Big
Did you
ups
know
to Ray Dog.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what he's talking about. I bought him cereal for Christmas. So,
And it
no
was
assistant.
amazing.
So guys, I will see you again next week. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask. I would love to answer them on the podcast. But until then, get out there, keep shooting, and we will see you. Paul, see you next time.
All right, you too.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Beginner Photography Podcast. Be sure to join the conversations on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want any links or resources we talked about in today's episode, check out the show notes at beginnerphotographypodcast.com. See you again next week.